In this video, we are going to look at converting an estimate to an order and then kind of moving the order, or checking the order, making sure everything's ready for production. And then just basic overview if you're making changes to production flow from the control side. So the first thing we'll want to do is we'll want to go find our estimate. So we'll explore estimates. And then I have our estimate that we created in our last video. So I will open that up. Now at this point you could edit this and make any changes to the estimate that are relevant, and that would convert over to the order, or you can wait and make changes on the order side if you want the estimate to stay more historical of what was sent out in the process. But as long as it's not converted and I have permissions, I can make edits, I can make changes, I can resend the report to the customer. But then I'm going to convert it. The customer said that's good to go. You do get a prompt if they have an outstanding balance. That's more of a business rule of whether or not you'd still convert this. And then once my estimate's converted, it will change to an order number, but it'll still be linked to that original estimate number. And these are hyperlinks. You can use them to navigate between the two. Now it looks like Accelsius has turned on the permission to edit the job the moment it's converted. That is a permission. It's up to you if you want that on or off as a business. But I can come and make changes. I can change my contact. I could come set my due date for production. What's my starting status for it? Do I need to add a customer PO number for it? I can review what my balance is for that job. If you require a deposit, now you can't be in edit mode to take the deposit, but that would also be relevant to the initial start of the job if they owe you a deposit for it. I can also get a snapshot of what my changes are doing to my production board as far as what's the estimated timeline for my due date. I can add any notes that I want to this particular job, this estimate or invoice. I can add any documents that I need to. Now, documents do not convert from estimate to order. But you do have a link to any of your estimate documentation. So if there is something you need to grab from the estimate level, you can go back to do it. But this really should be more about production documentation, your artwork in there, anything that's going on about scheduling, anything of that nature for this particular job. Then depending on if I know what my shipping information will be at this point, I can set up my shipping information for it as well. I think the most relevant change you'll probably be making right away is what is the due date for this particular job. Maybe making some adjustments to maybe materials that you have on hand or something of that nature. You can post the deposit if you'd like. So if we say yes, so we can look at the screen. It's going to automatically pick what the balance is based on what the shop rules are. So if you only take a 50% deposit and you have that set, it would try to divide this in half so that they only have to pay half the job now. Then you can enter cash, check, ACH, credit cards. Now these are all manual processes. As far as the credit cards go, this isn't actually going to process their credit card. You would be processing it probably through an external terminal and then telling us that you processed it. Generally, what I would say, and this goes valid for check or anything of that nature, use tracking number for anything that you want to track against that payment. So in the case of a credit card, this might be the transaction number on that external card swipe. If this is a check, that's probably the check number. Cash doesn't really have anything to track, but you can use the notes field if you want to keep any particular notes about that job. And then you can record the payment against the job and it'll make the relevant adjustments. And so now that I've saved my report, if I come to estimate, I have my invoice report and my work order report. Now, invoice Yes, it's traditionally about billing, but for control, the same report can do multiple things for us. So at this point in time, because we haven't taken any payment and it's not in the sales status, that report actually acts more like a order confirmation report. Once it's gone through all of production and it has become a sale, then it would be more like a true invoice. This is your bill. It's due on this date. And then even after they've processed the payment, you can actually use the same report to send it as a receipt. Thank you, you've received your payment, it's paid in full. So you can really use the report in multiple ways. And then you also have your work order if we're printing the paper work order for production. However, any information that's on the work order report would also be the same information that we're seeing on the production app. Um, then you have your status button, which would allow, again, manual changes if something isn't being changed by the production app, but more so by someone in the shop. Change station means change station within the current status. Right now we are within the WIP status, work in progress, or work in production status. Built, if you choose to use it as a business, I like to describe it as your quality assurance status. It drops off your morning hot list or your WIP list, but it hasn't reached accounting at this point. Some people will use it for scheduling of the shipping or the installation. Some people will use it as a holding place for accounting to control when the invoice date is set. There's quite a few reasons you could use for it. Reach out to Julia or David as far as how Excelsius wants to use it. And then we have sale, which is generally, I think, the most relevant change you'll be making from the control side. Most of WIP and part of Built can really be done through the production app. But moving it to sale or moving it to invoice is traditionally going to happen in control. So knowing where this is highly important. Sales being our invoicing status, it means that the job is done. It's done in production. It's either already in the customer's hand or it's ready to go to the customer in there. The important thing to note is you can move back and forth between WIP and Built as much as you want. Up to that point, there's no general accounting ramifications, meaning there's no general journal entries made between the job um, from the income or accounts receivables or the taxes levels. There are some off-balance sheet accounts that are being calculated at that point. But the moment you mark it a sale, all the accounting rules come into play: income, accounts receivables, payments, taxes, things of that nature. So if we notice something that's wrong after it's been marked sale, traditionally it does not go back to WIP and Built. You would void the order, clone it, and start over on a new invoice number. Now, if you have edit capabilities, you can make changes in the sales process, so it doesn't have to. It just won't show up on your WIP report, and it won't show up in the production app, depending on what was found or what has to go back and be changed for it. Um, The other thing that would potentially be done here, which I don't see the option turned on, would be our scheduling tab. And our scheduling tab is a work in progress at the moment. Julia's been working on setting this up for us. But it would give you an idea of what's currently on the work calendar for the day and where can I fit this job based on the estimated time coming from the parts tab, the estimated usage of that particular piece of machinery in there. Um, Production manager might also be using the production tab at this point to look at assignments, to look at due dates, to look at job groupings, anything of that nature going on that side, the production side of the job. From an accounting standpoint, if we go ahead and move this to sale, well, actually, I guess so. To my point earlier about if we look at the activities tab, there's some off balance entries being made at this point, but there's no real true accounting changes at this point. If I mark this sale, what we'll get is we'll get our entry that is our true accounting entry. So it's been marked sale. We get our activity here, and we'll see all the credits and balances going in for accounting. Now at this point, if I hadn't taken payment in the WIP, the next traditional step would be to get the payment from the customer. Once I have the payment from the customer and it's in sale, fully paid off, it will automatically go to closed for me. So I don't actually have to take a traditional step of closing the job as long as it's paid off. Now, I could have done those in multiple payments, which would have left it open until all payments were in. I can also, if I have the right permission set, if for some reason I need to reopen the job, I can go back to sale. Maybe they didn't mean to pay in cash. They wanted to pay on their card. You can go back to sale, void out the payment, and take the new payment through the system. Now, for the first couple times you probably do refunds, there's quite a few ways to do refunds in the system. We do have some videos on it in the basic training pages. But traditionally, I would even say reach out to our tech support department at support@sirius.com or calling in the main line. They can walk you through the various options and that apply to the situation, because the situation might dictate what that particular refund is used for. Most traditionally, you could right-click the payment and void the payment. You can also entry a we're not on the right screen, but you could have an action for a refund. You can also push the payment back to customer credit so they can use it in the future. There's a lot of different ways or a lot of different options around that. So it's definitely helpful to reach out to the support department as it's happening, so you make sure that you're doing the right thing, not only for you but for the customer in that refund. So now our job is closed. Again, I can run the standard invoice. It'll have a paid stamp on the invoice saying that the customer has paid this particular job, which just acts as an order receipt saying that it's done and paid in full for it. Probably really the main things there from the order side. Obviously, you have an Explorer order entry as well. You can search by number, by company, description, whether it's in WIP, built, or sale, or if it's closed or voided. You have your historical times as well. For most shops, unless you're really looking for it, closed and voided would not be checked by default. You'd probably have WIP, built, maybe sale, depending on what you're tracking as your saved options for your Explorer screen. Similar to the company video, an interesting sub-explorer here is line items. So I can click on a job and I can see what line items are attached to that job. And both of these have column choosers, so I can change what information I'm seeing about both of those explorers. I also have my right-click menu here for just running reports or changing the station, changing the status, changing due date, some of the relevant things from the order side of things. I think probably the only other thing that really kind of stood out on the documentation was the question about the WIP report. So some shops do explorers for various configurations of the WIP report. Some people like the physical printout of the report. The Explorer and the report are really linked. They're the same data, it's just depending on what view you prefer to see. So if I come to reports, WIP and built, in WIP reports, generally all these reports are just this report grouped a few different ways. So I, again, as compared to my estimate and invoice, I have options here of what do I want to include. and then I can preview the report. If it's in red, that means it's past due, so it should be kind of handled first and cleared out. Versus if it's in black, it's still it's either today or in the future for that option. So that is kind of your basic order entry from the customer support side slash payment side to an extent. In there, we'll make a separate video about some of the accounting reports that were on the list. Again, if there was something not covered in this video, please reach out to Julia or David. Might be something that we need to configure or have questions about, or we just need another video. But thanks. Have a great day.